דגל מחנה אפרים, פרשת שמיני. ויאמר משה להארון קרב אל המזבח. This is after Klal Yisrael builds a Mishkan. They build a dwelling place for the divine. And Moshe is teaching the priests how they're going to do their service for 7 days. Now comes the 8th day, and it's time for Aharon, the high priest, to take the lead and perform the service of lighting the candles. This should be obvious to everyone by now, that the actions of the ancient people had multiple layers of meaning in order to serve all the different levels within the people, different levels of intelligence, different levels of development. Because a human being is measured by intelligence. Not only a human being is measured by intelligence. The entire structure of life, of what makes some species more alive than other species, is intelligence. But within humanity, intelligence takes even more importance, because one who is not intelligent is dangerous to the spirit, because the essential structure of the spirit is intelligence. When the spirit is exposed to a lack of intelligence within creation, the spirit naturally closes down. It seeks, desires less life. Because intelligence is the life force that creates the desire. This intelligence is not describable in words. This intelligence uses words to express itself, but it cannot be contained with words. It cannot be expressed in words. It cannot be perceived by thought. It uses thought to express the depth of its nature, but it cannot be contained in thought. It cannot be visualized. And so this intelligence that is beyond any concept, beyond anything, beyond any name, is in essence what gives life to all concepts, all things. And as a human being evolves to come closer to this intelligence, by aligning with the nature that creates him, a human being is considered to be more alive. More alive, not simply on the basic level, on the level of how an animal is alive or how a tree is alive, but more alive in the very spirit, in the very portion that makes the human being special. More alive in the nefesh hamedaberes, in the soul that speaks. This is what we call the soul that man inherited above the animals. And so how much is man above the animal? That depends on the intelligence. When man is not intelligent, the same rules that apply to the animals apply to man. Man falls under the forces of nature that he cannot understand, under the forces that together create him, but he hasn't realized. And so as man rises in intelligence, he becomes distinguished from the animals. If he continues, he becomes distinguished amongst the angels, who are the messengers of the divine. Now this man has become more useful than the angels, because this man is down inside the world of free choice, where the angels are following orders, man is following his own compass. So now this man, as he's gaining intelligence, he's gaining power over the angels. The angels know the level of what they're interacting with simply because they comply with the rules of nature. The energy that's being created has a certain status within the language of nature. And the status of the energy of the man who gains intelligence gains power over the forces that were meant to serve man. And then, as man continues his quest for intelligence, he starts merging with the forces that the ancient people would call the gods. The gods are the intelligences that run the angels. Every angel is doing some type of a service to a specific intelligence that's trying to create a certain reality. And so the angels serve the gods. The forces, the 32 forces, 22 letters, 10 vowels, together known as Elohim, the divine forces. And as man gains power and intelligence that allow him to coexist in peace with these 32 forces called Elohim, now man gains access to his natural destiny, to his full maturity as a human being. And then he gains the name Yisrael. kisarisa im Elohim v'im anoshim v'tuchal, because your intelligence has allowed you to gain rulership over Elohim, the forces of nature that create you, and anoshim, other members of your species that also contain your potential for intelligence. So if you've gained enough intelligence to get along with these two elements, then your name is Yisrael. Yisrael is the intelligence that sits upon the throne of glory. That is, the throne that allows intelligence, a conceptual power, a force that manifests in the world of concept, to take ownership over a dwelling place created by matter, known as the human body. So each one of us is a throne for a higher intelligence. That higher intelligence created for itself a throne from within our mother's womb. And then it came out into the world and tries to evolve so that it can finally sit on its own throne. And then it will be called Israel. And so the ancient people created all rituals with this knowledge in mind. This was the specialty of the priests, to understand the biology that combines spirit with matter, and to know how to elevate it through intention, through desire, through understanding, through emotion. And so here, the high priest is going to light the 7 candles that represent the 7 attributes, the 7 divine attributes that need to be cultivated within every human being. This cultivation is being represented by lighting the candle, by creating light on the throne, the vessel, the menorah that's prepared for this purpose. So each cup, each vessel should be filled with the appropriate oil, which represents wisdom, and it should be lit. To light the wisdom means to have an emotional satisfaction from the knowledge that is being acquired. This lights up the emotions. So it's through the 3 sfirot that create the conceptual that the 7 attributes can penetrate the physical. And lighting the candles represents turning on these emotions so that they create the appropriate energy to receive intelligence. So he says, Moshe says to Aaron, Krav el HaMizbeach, come and do your service. יפרש רש"י, לפי שהיה Aaron בוש ויורם לגשם, שאמר למשה לא מטה בוש, לכך נבחרת עד כאן. Aaron was embarrassed, ashamed. He didn't feel worthy of the task that he was given. So Moshe said to him, why are you ashamed? Don't be bashful. You were chosen for this. So it says, the degel, v'utamor, this is unclear. Mishum shenivcha b'zeh lo yistal abushim olav. So he says that just because you say that he was chosen doesn't mean that he won't be embarrassed or ashamed. This is not necessarily answering to his concern. He says, "V'hine shmati adonu v'zekani." I heard from my grandfather, from the Baal Shem Tov. Pirush al zeh, mipnei sheyesh l'cho yireh busha min Hashem, l'kach nivcharto. Says, because you're embarrassed, that's why you were chosen. You're only embarrassed because you realize the greatness of what you're doing. Because to you it's real. Because as you're going to light those candles, you actually see yourself waking up these emotions and lighting them with joy. And so, because it's so real to you, until you feel unworthy, this is why you should be doing it. כי זבחה להם רוח נשבורה, יקוונס כזה בכיס והאריזל. So because he's humble and he recognizes the importance of what's being done, this is why he was chosen. Of course, there's depth to what he was saying that needs certain understandings before we can really understand the full depth. So now he's going to start explaining to us a little bit the depth of what's being said. So he says, there's a pasuk that says, the enemies of the righteous will be dressed in shame, but upon him will sprout the crown, upon the righteous one. So the enemies will be ashamed while he receives glory. It says, those who are against the one who made us, those who haven't realized yet who is in charge of what's taking place, those who think that this world is random, or they think that the Creator is unreasonable, they will end up in shame. Why will they end up in shame? Because their behaviors will not align with the truth. If the beliefs don't align with the truth, the behaviors don't align with the truth. And so eventually, they will be ashamed when they find out what they've missed. The one who does serve the intelligence that created him appropriately, Yotziz Nezer HaKodesh will sprout the holy crown. The holy crown is the light that surrounds the righteous, those who have found favor, have found grace in the eyes of the intelligence that makes them. V'nasim in Boishes Shabbos. We rearrange the letters of Boishes, which means shame. We get the letter Shabbos, which means rest. he is no longer ashamed. There's no reason for him to be ashamed. He didn't create himself. He is exactly what he was created to be. Why would he be ashamed? He is doing what the intelligence designed him to do. There's no room for shame. Shame indicates that the being is separate. The being thinks that it created itself, and it's ashamed by how it came out. It doesn't think it came out right. But if it recognizes the intelligence that created it, it should be ashamed to be ashamed. What's a human opinion compared to the one who creates all? How can a human be ashamed? What did the human do that it wasn't specifically created and designed to do? And so shame stems from separation. Shame stems from false beliefs. Shame stems from trying to control the uncontrollable. And so one who understands the truth, one who aligns with the intelligence that created him, turns boishes into Shabbos. He turns shame into rest, joy, pleasure. Now we'll describe in accordance with what we're trying to bring out. So he says, the Mishnah says, the wise man, his eyes are in his head. Well, also the unwise have their eyes on their head. And so obviously this needs deeper explanation. So the simple way is it's within his head, not just on his head. His vision is the vision of thought. In that world, wisdom grows. In the world of matter, which we can see with the physical eyes, with the external eyes, there's no wisdom to be found. Only possessions. And so, the wise man has his eyes in his head. So he says, it means, the Chacham always goes back to the beginning. He doesn't get confused by all the different details that took place. He looks at the core, he looks at the source, he looks at the root. The same when it comes to the Torah. He doesn't get confused by how big the Torah is and how difficult it is to come to a conclusion about what it's trying to say. Why? Because he looks for essence. He looks at the beginning. How did this begin? How did this become? What are we trying to accomplish? And so therefore he finds his focus going to the Mama Rishon She'onochi Hashem Elokecho. His focus of the Torah is first, let me understand who is talking to who, before I come to all kinds of conclusions about how much trouble I'm in. And so when he wants to know who's talking to who, he wants to understand who said Anochi Hashem Elokecho, Asher Etzisicha Meretz Mitzrayim. Who said, I am the divine force that took you out of Egypt. Who? Who's that I? As long as he doesn't find that I, nothing else in the Torah is going to make any sense. So the Chacham is looking at the source. V'yedua, Kohen Gadol Shashe Le'ele Le'ele. The high priest is representing something very lofty, something very high. The Kohen that is bigger than his brothers, that received the oil of anointment on his head. So this oil, he says, this is the divine wisdom, the higher wisdom, the intelligence that is inherent in everything and everywhere. There is not a process that exists, period, that wasn't designed by this wisdom. Our wisdom is just a tiny lick of that wisdom. Our wisdom meaning the conscious mind. Our wisdom that creates us, our neshama, the power that we have to create a body and dwell within a body, is a portion of this divine, all-powerful intelligence. The intelligence within each individual is like a sun to the intelligence within the collective. The intelligence that creates you is a son of the intelligence that created all the planets and all the stars, all the people and all the animals. And so, the Kohen Gadol, he receives from this oil. The high priest, he receives from this oil, meaning he receives additional intelligence. This is why he's bigger than all his brothers. Why is he bigger? He's bigger because he has more intelligence. This is the measurement of nature. Just like nature separates us in physical force and the power within our muscles, it also separates us in the spiritual force, the power within our hearts, the power within our brains. Just like our physical muscles, we can go and work out and become stronger as we show a desire for our intelligence to develop a certain area. Then it commits the resources and it improves our capacity. The same goes for our spiritual power, but to a much deeper, much more meaningful degree. And so this Kohen, the high priest, is supposed to represent the one who has the most wisdom, the one who knows most about the nature of the spirit and its relationship to the body. And so he receives from this anointment oil, shebechinas shemen, the wisdom is called oil, hashefas elav, v'chochma nimsheles l'mayin haneveh tamid lo yachzer. The wisdom is compared to a flow of a river, a flow of a well that is always coming. There's never a lack. There's never a lack of intelligence flowing from within the life force that creates us. So if you're alive, you're very close to a deep, vast and powerful source of intelligence. How do we know you're close? Because that source is creating you from within. If that source wasn't there, how would you know how to operate a kidney? That source is there. And that source is flowing into you, into your awareness, into your consciousness, like a river. that has no lack. The more you draw from the well, the more you take, the more it flows. The more it flows, you get a deeper flow of cool, pure, clean water that come forth in a stronger and stronger rush as you start taking, as you start using this flow, as you start exercising your spiritual power. Same goes for wisdom. As soon as there's place for it to start spreading out, it keeps on flowing more and more. There is never a lack. What's holding it back? What's the limit? Why don't we all have so much intelligence that we can solve all of humanity's problems? If we're so close to the well, it's right inside of us. It wants to give us. It wants to give us even more than we want to receive. This is why it gets frustrated when it cannot give. This is the source of all suffering. So it really wants to give us. So what's holding it back? What's not allowing us to receive? It's because the vessel, which is the body, can only contain wisdom based on its attributes. And so if the attributes are impure, if the emotions are not being regulated appropriately, then the influx of wisdom would kill the organism, because the intelligence would become upset at its own attributes. Why would it become upset? Because the attributes are not pure. And so what's limiting the intelligence to flow forth with its full force is the impurity of the attributes. Chaim, if the attributes are pure and clean, then the wisdom comes forth and spreads upon them. For example, a person that has learned kindness, then the intelligence can come forth because this organism will not hurt itself from this information. It has kindness. A person that doesn't have kindness and they receive intelligence, that intelligence will not be used in a kind way, which means it's going to cause harm. And the same goes b'chinas gevura, to have the appropriate courage, the appropriate strength to know how to use the intelligence and how to create things that have purpose, that are meaningful for humanity. Pride. So there's an appropriate pride. A human being is supposed to be proud. We're supposed to be proud members of our species. If we don't have pride in our species, then we cannot receive intelligence, because intelligence is about our species. It's about the life force that is making us, is allowing us to feed on its own power so that we can create reality. So if we're not proud of this predicament, then that intelligence cannot dwell in us. But at the same time, if we're proud on an individual level because we think we have the best opinions, or we think that how we look or how we act or what we possess is a source of pride, then the intelligence cannot dwell in such a body, because that body is separating itself from the whole. That body doesn't have the appropriate pride, the healthy pride, the pride that gives access to intelligence and doesn't ruin it. And so on and so forth. All the different sides of our personality that will affect how the intelligence is going to cause us to behave and see ourselves. They have to be purified before we are ready to receive intelligence. So if everything is purified appropriately, then the wisdom comes into these attributes like a well that comes into different streams of water. So each attribute is like a stream of energy, and the intelligence can freely come forth into the streams and fill them with life. This person is becoming purified and holy on all levels, the spiritual levels and the physical levels. The Kahanim used to receive 24 different gifts from the karbonis, from the people that would bring the sacrifices. So in another place he says about these 24 gifts that they represent the 24 endings of the body. So the body has 24 Roshei Avorim, the heads of the body parts, of the limbs. This includes the fingers and 4 other points. And so this represents, he says, this represents all 248 body parts. All limbs and organs are represented by these 24 endings. And so therefore, when Aharon received these 24 endings, it means that he has been purified by all his energies. Everything that lives inside all of his organs and all of his limbs are pure and holy the way that they were designed to be. There's no demonic activity that's causing disease or separation. This is why it's called the priest that is greater than his brothers. His brothers are the attributes. They're called brothers because they come from the same mother and father. The father is Chachma, the father is the wisdom, the intelligence, and the mother is Bina, the understanding, the way that it's being imagined, the way that it comes into the relationship with the self. So all these attributes are called brothers. And this Kohen, the priest, is bigger than the brothers. The midas, they are attached to each other and they receive from each other. Through purifying his attributes so that they're not dirty, they're not ugly, so then he receives from this anointment oil on his head, and these become the rivers. These become the rivers that move forward the water as it comes out from the well. And that is constantly flowing. This is what it means, anointment oil. To have purity in the world of thought. When a person has pure thoughts, then those thoughts are like oil that anoint the body, that bring softness, that bring freshness, that bring relief and healing to the body. And so this oil is spilling forth from the intelligence, and it's filling up the attributes. It's creating softness and gentleness and alignment within the attributes. וכן כל אדם אצל חבריו המקשיבים לכל בבחינת תלמידים, מאין חוכמוס ונבע בכל עץ אשר ממני יוסף ויוסף. The same goes for a person that is teaching wisdom to his friends, to his students. The more there's a flow, the more they take from him, the more they understand what's being said, the more the well is going to produce a stronger flow that keeps on getting stronger and stronger. כדרך המים הנובע, just like the well that is flowing. ואם חס ושלום, so the same goes the opposite way. If they don't take, if the well doesn't have where to flow, if the well is not appreciated, then the well dries up. וכן שמעתי בשם עדכנים ותכים, and I heard the same thing from my grandfather. I think there's this story that he would want his student, the Maggid Mezet, should always stay as much as he can next to him. He shouldn't go home. And the Maggid tried to understand why the Baal Shem Tov needs him around. He understood why he wants to be next to the Baal Shem Tov, so that he can learn. But why does the Baal Shem Tov need him? And the Baal Shem Tov explained that the more he has someone that appreciates his wisdom next to him, so that he can share his wisdom, the more he would receive from beyond, the more there would be a flow of wisdom coming from the inner intelligence, from the innate force that creates all. Vishamar David HaMelech b'Sefer Tehillim, the same David HaMelech says, Kashemen ha'tov al rosh yered al hazokon zekan haharn sheyered al pi midosav. It's like the good oil that comes down on the head of the old man and flows down on his beard according to his attributes. From the head, it comes forth into the beard. The beard represents it represents the energy of the brain as it spreads towards the body. And this is why it comes out from the bottom of the face. And Misham el Midoisa, from there, from the energy that flows from the brain, it comes to the attributes. It goes according to his attributes. According to how much the attributes were refined, so too the oil runs. So the more they're refined, the more the rivers are containing the water that's coming forth, and therefore more water is coming from the well. So the bottom line, what we learned here is that the wisdom is always flowing. The more it has where to spread, the more of it comes. It's like pure cold water on a tired soul. So I'll say a few more divine words. What does wisdom represent? It represents the appropriate awe, the appropriate fear. That's what it means. The pasuk says, "Reishis Chochma Yiras Hashem." The beginning of wisdom is the appropriate fear, because the wrong fear shuts the heart. It closes the heart because the heart is afraid to expand, and then it's going to suffer. So the heart closes down. The spirit wants to reduce its exposure when it's afraid. So only the appropriate fear, the fear of the life force, is what gives security. So when the fear is appropriately directed, it opens the heart. It allows the intelligence that is within the man to turn towards the intelligence that creates the man. And so, HaChochma is the Yira Pnimis, is the appropriate fear. Begin the Yira v'shalet ikar v'shoshe l'chol ha'olam. Because he is the head, he is the ruler, he is the source and the root of all the worlds. The intelligence that creates, the intelligence that designed our shape and our size, and how we manifest within and without, that intelligence is the source of everything. And wisdom is knowing how to interact with that intelligence appropriately. L'chein, ha'chocham dovek b'yira v'ahava b'pnimis. The wise is attached to the appropriate awe and the appropriate love, which is internal. Shem tren rein de lo misparshin. They are like two lovers that do not separate. The fear and the love that are appropriately directed, they love each other. The fear and the love that are inappropriately directed, they hate each other. One turns the other off. But the fear and the love that is appropriately directed, they turn each other on. They're lovers. One becomes like a throne for the other, because the love is to the one and the fear is from the one. Now, the more we realize his greatness, the more we're in awe. The more we're in awe, the more we love who we love. Because when we love him, we want him to be really big and powerful. It's very nice when he's big and powerful. Makes us feel very comfortable, very cozy. And so the more we love, the more the fear makes us love. And when we love, it increases the fear. We don't want to offend what we love. And so when it's properly directed, they turn each other on. The opposite of when it's improperly directed. Aharon had fear and shame of his condition, of how is it that I am chosen of all these people to do this service. He didn't see himself as so refined in his attributes. So he had the appropriate understanding, the appropriate awe of who he's dealing with, because obviously Aharon is called the Oiv Shalom V'Roidev Shalom. His attributes were worked out as far as the human being can go. And yet, he realized the greatness of the intelligence that created us, and he felt that to that intelligence, he didn't do enough. And so, Aharon had the midah of Yireh and Boishes, V'hemilas Breishis. The word Breishis can be rearranged to make Yireh Boishes, fear, the awe, and the embarrassment, which is the beginning of Chochmah. This is the wisdom. This is why he was chosen to be the high priest, that he should receive on his head the anointment oil, the holy anointment oil, which is the wisdom, and it comes down on his beard according to his attributes, like we said before. And then all his 248 organs and limbs become holy, become purified by this divine juice. Al derech v'hoi machnecha kodesh, like Pasuk said, your machne, your entire group should be holy. Your entire group means all parts of you. This is why, now we go back to the beginning, where Rashi says, Loma ate yoreh v'boish, why are you afraid? Why are you embarrassed? Because you have this midah, like the Baal Shem Tov said, that because you are embarrassed, this is why they chose you. So it says, because you're embarrassed, meaning that you have the appropriate fear, you have the appropriate awe. If you have the appropriate awe, lekach nivcharta, this is the reason why we chose you. This is why you're suitable for wisdom. כניסקי ותקינו, ברשס עין החוכמה, לכן אתה נבחרת לעסקן גול, this is why you were chosen to be the high priest, ולא תקרש חשם המשך, and to pour on your head the anointment oil, להקרב קבונס לשם, and to bring כלל ישראל closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to bring the creation closer to the Creator, through offerings that create forgiveness. ולכפר על עם הכל, ועל הכהנים, ועל הקודש, ועל המקדש. To bring forgiveness to all, to the priests, to the people, to everything that's holy, and to the divine dwelling place, sheibona b'mher b'yameinu, that should be rebuilt soon, within our lifetime. Hopefully very soon. So he's saying the reason why you're chosen is because you understood what you're interacting with. You understood how big is the one that we're dealing with. We're not dealing with simply other people and their intelligence. Other people and their intelligence are very limited. We might be smarter than all the people we've met, but we are certainly not smarter than the intelligence that's making us be. And so, because he understood the greatness, because he had enough development within his own brain, within his own intelligence, to realize the greatness of what he's interacting with, this is the reason why he was chosen. This is what made him different. This is what made him bigger than all of his brothers. It made him bigger than all the priests, and it made him bigger than the attributes, because his intelligence was now directing the attributes. When there's the appropriate awe, then all the attributes align in order to serve that real purpose. So may we all gain access to intelligence, to our intelligence, to the source that gives us intelligence, and find redemption from all our limitations and from all the damage that has been inflicted on our attributes, so that we can return and we can unite and we can rebuild the divine house, the divine home, that will remind everyone who we really are and how great is the one we're interacting with. Any questions? Thank you. Let's see. Yeah. Maybe these are the malachim we create with our thoughts, actions. These energy fields become a power independent. They independently impact us further, rippling out further than the moment. Yes, for sure. So every energy that we create is an angel. Everything that exists, everything that's real, and everything that we imagine, they're all forces, otherwise they wouldn't exist. So we start by perceiving a complete void, a complete emptiness, which is the intelligence and its potential. And from there, everything that comes forth is a force, which means that any movement within any dimension is an angel, is a force. And these forces, they have their hierarchies of how they function. So within our organs, we create through the angels. We create the angels in a sense, because every angel needs access to our life force before it can manifest. It only has life and it only has instruction from our life force. It doesn't receive directly from the source. It receives through the human life force that's creating the body. And then through that, it receives the intelligence of what to be and how to be. And because it receives it through us, when we're inappropriate to a certain degree, meaning that our intelligence is not attached to source, then these angels can start causing us damage because they're receiving instruction from us. They're not receiving instruction directly. So whatever's wrong with us becomes wrong with our patterns, and that affects our future. So if we make it right, if we release all the blockages within our attributes, then the wisdom can flow and can give life to every organ and to every limb the way that it's required. And then all the angels are singing. Then there's only beauty. There's only perfection. Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Christo. Oh, thank you, Alexandra. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay, then. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining. And have a wonderful night. Thank you, Orly. You have a question? Sure, go for it. Thanks, Andrea.
Typing is so hard.
No, go for it. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I know everyone's typing. I'm sorry. So the question I'm not sure if it's a question or reflection or just a state of confusion, but like if our ancestry has given, like we inherit what our ancestry has given to us, and I understand there's the concept of doing tshuva, which is what you're talking about. But I'm wondering, or sometimes I just feel like there's places that I can't even really unfold or unpack or like even fix. There's like this stuckness that I feel is like, as much as I try to move in the right direction, I always wonder to myself, is that something like kind of beyond me? And I guess maybe then the question would be, is that just enough? Like we can only do what we can do. Like, is there more outside of just trying to work on our 7 lower emotions to kind of like get past what we might have inherited from our grandparents and grandparents?
Yeah. So we're never expected to do what we cannot do, obviously. And just because we don't succeed from our perspective doesn't mean that we didn't succeed from the absolute perspective. The absolute perspective takes everything into account. Humans are not capable of doing that. So it doesn't matter by who we're being judged, or even if it's ourselves thinking that we should have or we could have. All these things are meaningless. They're just another thought. They're just another activity of the brain. And it's wise for us to not create those activities if we have any control, because we're basically contradicting the intelligence when we think we know what should be. Only the intelligence knows what should be, and we can assume pretty safely that what is should be. It shouldn't, in the sense that if we would have gone down a different path, it would have been different. But we didn't, and therefore it is the way that it is, and therefore this is what it needs to be. So everything that already happened, we are eventually going to accept. There's no choice, really. So the sooner we surrender and accept it, the more easily our process will go. But when it comes to repairing ourselves, our aim is to gain intelligence, because working directly on the attributes from the same beliefs and the same perspectives that we previously had are going to result in very similar outcomes. It's not force that we're going to use over here in order to improve our behaviors and our thoughts. It's the deeper knowledge of the truth that's going to align us with the goodness that we already are, we always were, and always will be. So everything that we're stuck in, everything that we're not doing right, it's because our lack of intelligence is frustrating some area of us, some area of our interaction with reality. We don't understand this area enough to know how to do it safely. And therefore, we create friction, we create conflict, we create complication. And so the more we're going to gain intelligence, the more we're going to naturally behave in accordance with the divine attributes. The divine attributes are our very nature. We're not meant to change that. We're meant to rediscover. It's like trying to dig in the ground until we find this well, this well that is there, that is in the ground already. The water is there, everything is there. We just have to create an opening so that it starts flowing through. So this is how we were describing intelligence, like a well. So the more we open, the more we dig, the more we allow access, the more we're going to realize that we were always perfect. And everything we did was a perfect response based on the situation, based on all the different details available to the intelligence at the time we made a decision. That decision is accurate according to the divine truth. And the proof that it's accurate is that it happened. So we're meant to study what's happening in order to improve it. We're not meant to argue with what's happening. We cannot win that argument. So intelligence is infinite. There's no limit. We can one day hear something that changes everything for us. And suddenly what was a tremendous struggle and we didn't know how to overcome is so simple that we would never think otherwise. Because now we have different information. Now we believe differently. That changes everything. And so the goal of a human being as he tries to grow is to increase intelligence every single day. And one who has access, one who has the ability to increase intelligence every single day, is one who has proven that he loves reality. It's his love for reality that brings an increase in intelligence consistently. And that increase is his eternal gift from the source of reality that is extremely pleased by his love of reality. Because it's his reality. If we love it, we align with him. And then he does us favors by allowing us to align with him more and more, by getting to know the wonders of what he is and what he does, and realizing that you are one with that. All the stories, all the circumstances, all the challenges that seem to affect us biologically are only affecting us because we haven't been programmed properly. We've been programmed in a way that makes us feel little and small. And then everything that's happening around us is affecting us in a disproportionate way. So, as we gain intelligence, we gain access to a tranquilizer that makes life a lot less painful because we trust the source. We trust the one who gives it to us. We trust the force that's inside of us, that's making it, that's creating it, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of what's happening and how it's happening. That force has been faithful to humanity from the beginning. It didn't doubt us. It didn't leave us. And it's still here. It's still happening. This is the proof. And so the more we get close to this force, the more we love it, the more it dwells within us. And that intelligence unites us with everything that is. Because we are one with everything that is. We're the same cells, the same molecules, changing form from one being to another being, from an inanimate object to a plant, to an animal, to a human, and back to an inanimate object. The same cells. It's the same cells that made our grandparents and our great-grandparents and all the generations before, and now it's dressed up as us. And so the more we have from this intelligence, our attributes align automatically. It doesn't require effort. The effort is to forget the old. The effort is to unleash the caged spirit that has been told and made to believe many lies, and therefore it feels small and insignificant, and then it becomes petty about what it owns and what other people own and how it looks and what it's doing and how other people think it's doing. All these things, all these worries, all these complications disappear in an instant when the spirit remembers who it really is. Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, everyone. Have a good night. Thank you, Orly.